Welcome to Tales of Resilience, the podcast that shares the real stories of the people behind animal rescue, the heartbreaks, the triumphs, and the moments that keep us going. I'm your host, Jolene, a mental health therapist and lifelong animal lover. This podcast is brought to you by Zodipods, a heart-led company celebrating the bond between people and their pets, and Animal Rescue Hub, our free nonprofit directory supporting rescue groups across the country. This episode may include references of animal suffering and death, as well as themes of mental health, including suicide. Welcome to Tales of Resilience. I'm your host, Jolene, and today I'm joined by Todd Friedman, the founder of Arthur's Acres Animal Sanctuary. Todd's journey began with a personal awakening, realizing that there was no difference between the animals we share our homes with and the ones that often are forgotten or mistreated. After volunteering at a sanctuary in 2013, he discovered the true power of compassion and the responsibility we hold towards animals. In 2018, with the support of friends and family, Todd turned a former backyard slaughter operation into a sanctuary of love and healing. At the heart of it all was Arthur, a tiny piglet whose rescue became the spark that started Arthur's Acres. Today, the sanctuary is a safe haven for animals who have been abused, exploited, or discarded. And Todd continues to lead with a mission of rescue, rehabilitation, and education. Todd, it's an honor to have you here with us today.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I'm very excited.
Yes, us too. Well, it's always nice to be able to just start off learning more about Arthur's Acres Animal Sanctuary and just kind of what you guys are about, what you're doing, and then just telling me a little bit more about how you really came into this work. How you were inspired to do what you're doing.
It really started, I've always had a passion for animals my whole life and always felt, a healing vibe from them and really just felt more comfortable with animals a lot of the time than with people, go to gatherings and parties. And if there was a dog or cat or any other animal, that's where you'd find me. And so, I was running my own business, a small printing operation in New Jersey, and really wasn't being fulfilled, by work, by, anything else. And so I decided to look other places and I found, I just loved animals. I was vegetarian at the time and felt that I wanted to get more involved. And so I found a sanctuary a couple hours away and decided, hey, let me do a 1 day volunteer opportunity, and I did, and I loved it, and it kind of steamrolled into a few months later going every single weekend, Saturday and Sunday for 2 years. And at that point, I'm like, I'm done. I don't want to do this. I'm not being fulfilled in my life, and I need to do something more that makes me feel like I'm accomplishing something, not just going to work. And, it was like Groundhog Day. And I think that's very similar for um, a lot of people. I don't think it's that part of the story is unique. It's just there was no meaning what I was doing except a paycheck, and owning my own business is stressful. And, decided, hey, I'm selling everything. I'm moving to upstate New York and I'm going to see how it goes. And so the sanctuary I was volunteering at caught wind of it and said, hey, do you want to work here? I'm like, sure. So it was easy as that. And I did that for 2 years and I absolutely loved it. It was just a complete awakening for me as far as finding who I was, finding what I was here for, and finding the love of animals that was always there, but the ability to be around them. And I always had my dogs and I had cats and animals like that. And but to be around them, taking care of them, and being their caregiver was, you know, a, a spiritual awakening of sorts. And I loved it so much and just threw myself into it. I worked 7 days a week. I worked 15, 16, 17 hours a day. And they had to like force me to take time off because I was always there and I just loved it so much and they didn't want me to get burnt out. And I would like do my shift, run home, eat dinner, and run back and sit with the pigs. And I would have sunset with the pigs every night. And it just became more of who I was as a whole and being around animals and really finding, as I said, what I was put on earth to do. And so in that in that phase, I was loving what I was doing, and I just felt like I wanted to do something. I felt a real connection and passion to the pigs, and I felt like I wanted to focus on them. And so I decided to open my own place. And when I looked at properties, I found Arthur at Arthur's Ape, and the place was just an absolute disaster, and unfortunately, unalived animals everywhere, and
Mm.
um, garbage being burned in the driveway, and just an absolute like I did not want this property whatsoever. It was a disaster. And then I found Arthur, and Arthur is my uncle's name, my grandfather's name, and that name came to me right away. I don't know why. It just stuck in my mind, and he became Arthur, and I looked at him and I knew he was Arthur right away. And so I really didn't want the property, and everything kept coming around telling me I had to do this property there, and it kind of made sense after a while, and I fought it, and then here we are today.
Hmm. Yeah, that's it is interesting how there are just signs or things that happen that just keep refocusing you to where you're supposed to be.
Oh, yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about what happens at Arthur's Acres. Tell me more about the work that you're doing.
Well, I mean, we decided that we would 100% focus on pigs, and we have chickens and they get the best medical care possible, and we have cats and they get and dogs, and everybody gets the best medical care possible. But my passion was pigs, and I wanted to make sure people had the correct understanding of pigs, because what people know about pigs is usually pretty wrong, because it's easier to eat a dumb, dirty animal than it is the fourth smartest animal and one of the cleanest animals on the planet. I'm not comfortable with the phrase voice of the voiceless, because if you've ever been around these animals, you clearly understand that they're not voiceless. Um, so I just want to make sure I amplify their voice and let people hear and give them different channels for people to open their eyes and see what amazing, beautiful animals these pigs really are, and how they want to live and they want to love and they feel pain and they feel happiness and they feel emotions just like we do. They have family units. They are just absolutely wonderful. And so I wanted to make sure people understood that. And my form of amplifying their voice is via social media and via podcasts like this, or anybody who's willing to talk to me in a grocery store or at a gas station or, at a farmer's market. I'm talking, it's going to be hard to shut me up. And so I really found success through showing them as individuals on social media, and people, it really resonated with people. And it's been such an amazing journey, because we get messages on a daily basis saying that they stopped eating animals because of Arthur's Acres, or this
Mhm.
specific animal really stuck with them, and they stopped eating animals, or they stopped eating pork. And you know obviously I wish the world would go vegan and then we would start abusing animals, but I have to take each increment and appreciate what people will do until we get to the final destination. And so with that, it's just, I find that showing them as individuals, showing their lives, both good and bad, when they're having good days and bad days, connects people with these animals. And we just recently lost our beautiful pig Wren, and literally thousands of messages saying that she changed them. And, I kind of do the same speech when we lose an animal that, if you woke up this morning and you're shedding a tear for an animal you never met, she did her job. She changed you. And so why it's kind of a canned speech, it's just as emotional, it's just as powerful because, people get up in the morning, and find out an animal that they've been rooting for is no longer with us and lost their battle.
Yeah.
And thousands upon thousands of people are in tears. And I find that my heart is absolutely broken that she's not here, and I would do anything to have her back with me. She didn't pass in vain because she did what she had to do and change people. And that's probably all of our jobs. And so, like I said, there'd be nothing I wouldn't give to have her here. But the fact that there's thousands upon thousands of people mourning her passing,
Mhm.
where years ago, before they found us, wouldn't blink twice of having a bacon, egg, and cheese and not thinking about the suffering that went into that meal.
Yeah.
So she did something. She changed people, and that was just wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, that has to be very empowering to keep doing what you're doing, to know that you, your team, and the animals that you care so deeply for are making an impact in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's an honor, and we get to do it. That's what it is. It's an honor. It's very hard. It's very exhausting, and it's very hard because when you would like to just lay in bed and mourn and stick your face in the pillow, one, you have to take care of animals, but you also have the responsibility to inform the people that have been sending all their love and all their energy and all their healing vibes and to her and grieve as a group. So that's really hard because sometimes you just want to shut the door and close your eyes. And with that responsibility, you don't, that's not an option.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, and we'll definitely have more opportunity to talk about resilience and the animals that have changed you and touched you. But kind of rewinding a little bit, you were talking about maybe some misconceptions that people have about whether it's animals in general or the work that you're doing. Um, if you could have one wish, I suppose, if there was something, a misconception that you could correct or hope that people would understand, what would you want them to understand?
Only one.
Or you could pick others, you could pick a
Well,
few.
I think the that's a really hard question because do we talk about compassion, veganism as a whole, or do we go on an individual level as pigs misconception? As a whole, I don't fault people for not knowing. But when they find out how these animals are treated and how they lose their lives and how they're raised, then there's some issues with me. If you could still eat an animal and no, Paul McCartney said if slaughterhouses had glass walls, everybody be vegetarian. I
Mm,
correct that and say vegan. And I do believe that. So the misconception of people thinking these animals live in a beautiful pasture and they love and they're outside and they're warm and they're comfortable and they get snacks and they get love is pure delusion. You know, and so but I think people do that in their heads to put in a place where they can be comfortable with having that hamburger, with having the chicken, with having, pig and any other animal because this was considered a farm to table, and I saw the destruction here. I saw the dead bodies everywhere. I saw a goat leg tied to a rope. The neighbor told me that the gentleman was just hitting animals over the head with hammers, and we have proof because we have skulls all over the place. And so, um, the misconception of people thinking that these animals go to sleep and wake up as a burger on their plate or a pork chop or bacon on your plate and there's no suffering involved is pretty much a big misconception. And again, people want to think what they want to think so they feel more comfortable. When I go into a coffee place or something like that and someone orders a bacon, egg, and cheese in front of me, I cringe, but that's not my battle right there. If I try to fight every one of those battles, I just couldn't get my day done. But it still hurts, and that person thinking that it's just breakfast. And that's why, like, honestly, we do as many tours as possible. And on days where I'm just absolutely exhausted because I do my regular duties, my regular chores, office work and social media and lives and everything. And someone wants to book a tour for 2 o'clock. And I'm like, initially, I'm like, I can't, I'm just tired. And then I'm like, I got to do it, man. Because every time someone touches an animal here, it changes them. We've never had a person leave this property without being changed.
Mm.
We get vegans, we get vegetarians. So if we get vegans, we're cool. If we get vegetarians, they become vegan here. If we get meat eaters, they have an appreciation to what happens out there and it changes them. There's not one person, and I will guarantee that has come on this property that hasn't had, a thought go through their head on what happens. And if it doesn't happen immediately, it happens down the road. And that's why I do what I do. And that's why it's so important for me to connect with as many people as possible because as long as I have breath in my lungs, I am going to shout from the mountaintops. These animals play. And, you know, I talk to everybody and so much, and I say, what's my dream? And I am a volunteer. I do not get paid. But my dream is to be unemployed. My dream is to have the last animal here die of old age, me throw the keys in the door and disappear. People are like, oh, but you like being in front of the camera. Or you like that. I'm like, I don't like it. I do it because it's necessary. And I'm able to connect with people. So I do it. But the only reason I do it is for the animals. This isn't an ego trip. This isn't anything about me. And it works. So I do it. And so the day I hope it comes in my lifetime where I throw the keys in the door and no one ever sees me again. I delete social media and just just drive and figure stuff out. And I hope it happens in my lifetime.
Yeah.
I really do. Am I hopeful? Well, probably not. But weirder things have happened. And so, you get the right couple people that get behind this movement and it could be done. And um, so, straightening out the misconception with people and either on a broad spectrum, broad base, as far as social media or even a one-on-one on tours is really important. And I take that job very seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And uh, from my perspective, in the work that I do with as a mental health therapist, I totally understand that dream, right? Like my job, I wish I didn't have a job, in some ways. That means that the world is hopefully maybe in a better place. But
Yeah.
yeah, I get that. So I know before we kind of started recording, you had mentioned that there is no normal day, that there's not a day where that's fairly predictable, but it sounds like day in and day out, you are hustling, you are working hard. Can you give me a snapshot of what is required of you day to day?
So, from the beginning, we feed the first thing, medications. I have some caregivers that do one caregiver right now that will do medications and um And so after feeding, and I make sure I have my eye on every animal in the morning so that I have a good baseline of what's going on with them because we do have some special care animals that we just have to make sure that, a couple of eyes are on them to make sure, every day that they have the same um, demeanor, if everybody's eating, everybody's walking correctly. You just want to get a good scan of everybody real quick. And so to, start day is feeding. And then I do all the social media, so I have to do, I do two posts in the morning. Um, and there's no big company or plan behind my social media. I take videos of the animals and I take pictures of the animals and then I post a picture in the morning and then I post a video in the morning and there's I do no editing. Sometimes I bring in people to help me, but I literally 99% of my videos, there's not one edit in there. And I think people actually appreciate that. There's no fancy the talking in the background. I forgot what that's called. Was it voiceover work?
It's over.
It's
Yeah.
not. Yeah, I don't do any of that. I don't. When I try to figure that stuff out, it's not my cup of tea. So, and that's what's crazy is that people don't understand that's such a big part of my day. And then there's also bills, and then there's also meetings of getting bills paid and talking to donors and figuring out budgets and fundraisers because you always have to figure out a fundraiser, the next fundraiser. So, there's in and out of the office doing the pencil pushing, the phone calls, the insurance, and then my life as far as
Right.
doctor's appointments or whatever's going on or car maintenance or, so that gets sprinkled in there as well. So, uh, that takes up a couple hours a day and then, go back to the animals and whatever maintenance project I do most of the maintenance on the property. So I have to figure out what maintenance. So it's, in the summer, it's mowing the lawn and, you have 78 acres of lawn to mow. And I do that usually when I have to mow, it's a couple hours a day because I can't do it all at once and pond maintenance. And if the caregiver needs, help with, I do all the hooves on the large pigs. I do the shots. And this morning I soaked three pigs' feet because they had sore feet. And so depending, like there's no normal. And so then shove something in my face. I try to, I try to sit down for like 15 minutes and eat something and, just take a breath. But a lot of times it's grabbing a sandwich and walking back out to the farm. And some days are way calmer than that. So I'm not saying I'm like going 20 because there's times that I have to close my eyes for 15 minutes or it's just not good because I've cut back on lives and I'll go back to lives just because we've been through a lot of emotional stuff. But I
Yes.
go live for an hour almost every day. Again, I've slowed down because there's been a lot of emotional stuff, but we'll probably ramp it up come fall. And 5 days a week, I'm on live for an hour.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And then I do a reel. And then you start getting everybody ready for bed. And so by the time it's over, you're passing out. You're just tired, and always have really good intentions of, oh, maybe we can go out to dinner. Maybe we could do something. And by 7 o'clock, you're just thinking, I hope no one heard that because I'm too tired to do any of this
Yeah.
stuff. And it's like, and the thing is, you can always push through. Like at any time, if it's so funny because you could be a zombie. I'm exhausted right now. We're up late getting ready for an event tomorrow, and I'm always I find it in you talk about resilience and stuff like that. If an animal didn't feel good, things switch. And I
Mhm.
can drive 2.5 hours to Cornell like it was nothing.
Yeah.
And I don't think about it. In my head, I'm not like, okay, Do I take them now? Do I get some sleep? Nope. I just go, hook up the truck, get in the car, get in the van, and go. And it's not even a question. Driving home, on the other hand, that's a situation because the adrenaline is gone.
Yeah.
They're safe. Some coffee would be involved, and maybe some energy drinks, or a nap at a gas station. Uh,
Totally.
But I never thought in my life because that I'd have that kind of resilience because I never had to. There was never anybody's life in my hands, And this could happen on a daily basis. I've gone back and forth to Cornell twice in a day, and that's 2.5 hours each way, and unloading and loading. And you don't blink an eye. I took an animal and I got back and I was told this one doesn't feel good. I said, okay, I'll go back. It's not, I don't, there's no thinking. I was working somewhere and the boss posted a video of spinning in an office chair. And it was like a silly video and it said procrastination. I'm like, I don't have that luxury.
Mm-hmm.
When you run a sanctuary, it's just not a thing. Like it's not even an option. It's like weird. It's like I saw this person and I was like, wow, you have that option. I don't. I never did.
Yeah.
Even as a caregiver when I was working in another sanctuary, if you procrastinate, I'm sorry, this
It's
is
good. Yeah.
um if you procrastinate, animals' lives can be in danger.
Oh,
And honestly, it's like I take even it, but for me, even if it's them eating, there's no reason I have to make them wait. I can switch on and switch off. I mean, there's times where you're just absolutely exhausted and you could push through that next 15 minutes and make sure, but no one's ever fed late um because I needed a second,
yeah.
and because I can have the second after I feed it, them. And so this is stuff before I was dealing with lives. I didn't think I had it. I didn't need to have it. And when I watched this video of this person, it struck me because I'm like, you're in an office, you're spinning in a chair, no lives are in your care. I don't know what that feels like.
Hmm.
So if I'm upstairs or, I'm finally done with the day and someone said, oh, whoever, Max needs, can you take a look at Max? I don't sit there for 1 second, take a breath. I can automatically just lift and go. Never in my life was that a situation. Before and I ran a printing business, it was like nothing. And I can lay in bed and someone will call, can you just, yeah, I'll do it. Close my eyes and go back to bed for a couple more minutes. Nope.
Hmm.
It is what it is. And it's different.
So it's partly how you're wired, just in general, but also when
I don't think I was always wired like
oh,
that.
okay. Okay.
I definitely don't think I don't know if I can remember as clearly as I'd like to. I'm getting on in years. But I don't think I definitely wasn't always wired like that. And now it's just, I mean, I think it would live it exhausted. I think that's where, and if you're going through the day and you get a kick of energy, that's awesome. But, you don't have the ability to procrastinate. That's all it is. And it's
Mhm.
not, it's something you just eliminate in your life.
Yeah. No longer becomes a choice.
It is. It's just it's not even it's like and that's why that video struck me as so odd because I don't even it wasn't even it was I don't even know what that is.
Yeah. It's just really foreign.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you had a definition for resilience, do you know how you would define it?
I don't think I can define it in easy terms. It's just I can define it by experiences.
Hmm.
And I go back to a story of and I'll try not to tear up, but I'll go back to a story where I have a picture of her right there, but Katniss, who is, I'm saying is, but she's passed.
Mm.
I've never had that feeling on an animal before, and she will always be so much a part of my soul. And so she came here. She was locked in a shed with her sister Prim, her niece niece Rue, and she was locked in a shed in the middle of the woods, left to die. And they were skeletons. The neighbor was walking through this property, heard noises, called the police. The doors were all screwed shut and everything like that. The police opened up the doors, knocked down the walls, and they were sleeping on each other's backs not to drown in their own feces.
Mm.
And so all of them got out and they got here and they were skin and bones. They were as skinny gets. And when they came here, they were we had to really work with them because they were really starving, and so you have to slowly feed them and make sure their bodies don't go into shock. And after a month or two, Katniss struggled to walk and she was paralyzed.
Mm.
She went to Cornell. She was there for a while, and they said, we can't figure out what's wrong with her. She's too big to go into our CAT scan machine. There's no more we can do. You can either say goodbye here or take her home and see what you can do. And already had a really good bond with her. And I said, I know her. She's not ready. They're like, she's 600 pounds. She can't walk. What are you going to do? I said, I don't know. I said, but she's not ready to go. The first year I had volunteers on the weekends, but I was here majority by myself. Very strange property, slaughterhouse, everything falling apart. Very scary. So Katniss couldn't walk. And so every day I'd go and, you know, do physical therapy on her, feed her, clean up after her, give her water, try to get her up a little, try to move her, and did that for 4 months, dead of winter, and she walked again.
Mm.
And that set the kind of energy and theme to what and where we are at today. And so she looked me in the eyes and said she wasn't ready. Now, she passed last year after 5 wonderful years here. And but it was an option to say goodbye. And I lifted a 600-pound pig with leverage in the cold and got her to walk again. And she was thriving and she did amazing and she had a wonderful life and she had a boyfriend and she had her family here and she had a wonderful 5 years. And it was because I hate to use the word, it was just like I was too stupid to understand I wasn't able to do something. I couldn't comprehend the fact that I had to lift a 600-pound pig by myself. And at that point, I didn't want anybody touching her anyway because I knew her so well. Like I knew this pig like as much as we knew each other. It was like we knew each other, what we were thinking. We knew what we were talking about. We knew how I knew like I knew how my day was going to go depending how she was feeling because she had arthritis, she had problems, but she was mobile, she was out, she was about, and she had a zest for life, and it was wonderful. But we were so connected that I knew how my day was going to be depending how she was feeling. I could have felt fine, but if she was having a bad day, my day was done.
Mm.
I would do what I had to do and I would, get through my day, but she was always in the back of my mind wondering, okay, and I'd go check on her I knew so I live in the house and the property and the back, I mean everything overlooks the sanctuary, the house in the middle of the sanctuary, but there's a window in the hallway upstairs that overlooked her stall, the door to the outside. So, like clockwork for years, the minute I got up, I would go and check. I would go and check the window and see if she was walking that day, and if she was walking good. And I'd peek out, and I'd see her outside. I'd be like, "Cool, it's gonna be a great day." Set the tone for the day. Go out, not see her. I'm like, and then she can get a late start, and then I'd go out and she'd walk out and it'd be like, great. But if I go out and I see her stumbling a little and having a little more problems, because of arthritis, and it affected me. It affected me in an emotional level, in a spiritual level, knowing that someone I deeply, deeply loved and cared for, um, was in pain or was uncomfortable. And it
Mm.
was never painful. I mean, we would never let an animal suffer, and my dedication is I'm not going to let an animal suffer because of my emotional wanting them around. And so in never would I make an animal suffer because of my personal feelings. So she set the tone to everything and how I wanted us to work with animals here. And so the resilience with that was just I had to make sure that one, I didn't show her that I was worried because I 1,000% think she was as connected to me as I was to her. And people would always say that because they couldn't do certain things. And they'd be like, oh, could I, her feet need to be wrapped or something like that. You better do it. And she would let me do anything. And, um, we would lay in the pasture together and, just connect. I mean, and part of that was great because people saw that connection. And actually there was, we did a documentary and my best friend's an animal
Mm.
and it was on uh Disney Plus or something like that um and those things take forever to get edited and stuff so I kind of forgot about it and then she passed away and I didn't even want to watch and then because I just there's certain things I can't and then got so many messages like oh my God I saw that on Disney Plus that was so cool it's so cool I'm like what are you talking about because I kind of blocked it out so that's how special our relationship was because I would just lay in the pasture with her and it would just be like so it was why I was lucky to go through that and have such a special soul in my life. Again, the amount of people that connected with that and changed and because of that relationship was so amazing. And so I'm lucky to do what I do. And I'm lucky that I was able to go through that time with her in the beginning to get her where she could be okay and do stuff that I was able to do and not know it I was ever, I didn't know how I was going to lift her. I didn't know how I was going to do anything. I wasn't even, I didn't know I had to walk, we'd have wind chills at 38 below zero. And so I had to go down and every hour make sure she was okay, make sure she had drink if she wanted to drink, make sure, she wasn't going to the bathroom on herself, make sure all that was possible. And it's like, and again, where it comes to there's no such thing as procrastination. It's warm, it's nice. I'm all warm and cozy in the house, and it's you go outside and the wind hits you in the face like a brick, and you just push through. It just happens. And so another situation that I didn't know I had it in me, you know.
Yeah. Do you ever, or maybe I should say, have you ever found yourself wondering if you can keep up with it, or have you ever thought maybe I should just give up?
Honestly, not when it comes to the animals.
Yeah.
It's the people. And I think there's a famous underground, I don't even know if it's still underground in rescue, is that if I ever left rescue, it wouldn't be because of the animals. The and I'm not talking about our supporters. Our supporters are wonderful. We have wonderful volunteers. There's so much hate for people that are trying to change the world. And it's not, if you go look at, I don't even have to check my post today. If you go look at my post, there's hate on it. Judging me for, I mean, everything you can think of. And why, um, tens of thousands of beautiful messages about Ren, about Katniss when she passed away, about all these amazing animals that we've had live here and have unfortunately passed here. The judgment is always made about us doing the right thing. And we have a team of doctors at Cornell. We have a local vet. We have caregivers. That all are able to add their 2 cents and how an animal is living. And they get pretty hurtful. And why, you know, and we take all that with a grain of salt, and people are like, just don't let it bother you. It's like, I'm not that person. I could have got 10,000 positive messages, and the one negative message is the one that's going to really do me in. And even though I know it's not true, even though it still hurts, and it's just um, I kind of go into like a rabbit hole and trying to like justify and like literally I'm telling you I get messages from people, you got to check this post, there's people hating on you there, there's people hating it.
Mhm.
I mean, and just such absolutely delusional things that's not even close to true. And it's true, it's provably not true. It's just they're so outlandish, it's ridiculous. And so those are the times where you just want to get in your car and drive. And the other day, it happened the other day, less than a week ago, where it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. I got dressed and I was getting ready to go in the car because someone said something really nasty. And it was like really, really hurtful and really nasty about Red. Absolutely so outlandish and so not true and so whatever. But it hurt. And great, those people won. I don't care. It's not a win or lose battle. Like you said something nasty, it got to me. Great, you're a winner. But who does it affect? It affects me. It doesn't affect the animals. It doesn't. It affects me, and you won. Great. And unfortunately, that's my personality where those things bother me. And I have thousands of people just don't let it bother you. Don't let it bother you. I'm like, and again, the craziest thing you can think of. Like once someone said, and we have all the documents and the paperwork and the bills to prove. And, we have animal care software and everybody gets the same level of care no matter what. And someone said only his favorites get animal care
Mm.
and medical care. It's so delusional. One, obviously, I have bonds with some of these animals, and it happens. And I tell people that like the bonds happen when they're sick and you have to take care of them and they're relying on you and you're spending 24 hours a day and you're nursing them back to health. I love all these animals equally, but you develop a special bonds with the ones that you have to really caretake for because it's a maternal thing,
Mhm.
and so if someone came up, this one's having an issue, I'm not like, well, it's always like, okay, call the vet. If the vet can't do anything, we'll go to Cornell. And it's like, it was so delusional of this person to say that, and it was just to be flat out hurtful. And again, absolutely provably wrong by 30 levels of facts. But this person believes it. That's the problem. And they're going to tell someone who they believe that. And it's like, why it will affect me, it affects the animals. Because you may say that to someone and someone may believe it and be like, oh, we don't want to donate there because only his favorites gets the, and that's so, we have board members that are animal experts that have their eyes on these animals every week. There's two of our board members are animal experts and they're on site every week.
Yeah.
And I would never leave because of the workload.
Mhm.
And I would never leave. I mean, leaving's not an option. And I went through a health crisis last year that almost killed me. I was very sick for 2 years and went to doctor. They couldn't figure out wrong with me. Finally, they figured out that I had a 9% blockage in my heart and I had 6 months to live. And they found it at like the exact, like a crucial time. And so that's fixed. And that didn't cause me just slow. I mean, I wasn't even slowed down. There was like, I was at death's door several times. And I didn't even know it. I was shoveling snow, I was unloading hay, and I got deathly ill. And I crawled back to the house and I said, I'm getting old. This is what getting old is like. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And then I was at the doctor's and they're like, they did some tests, like, there's nothing wrong with you. Go home. We'll call you next week. And then the next morning, like, how quickly can you get back here? And so if that wasn't going to do it in for me, and the people wanting to take me down isn't going to do it for put me in, there's really nothing that's going to do it. There are days that you sit in bed before you get up and there's tears in your eyes and you don't know how you can do it because you're tired. Your feet hurt. This hurts. I'm 55 years old. Arthritis kicks in and your back hurts and you just do it. The other day I was walking a little hunched over because I threw out my back and we had people doing some construction here and I was moving cinder blocks and they're like, why are you walking like that? I'm like, I threw out my back. I'm like, well, do you want to? I got it. I got it.
Mm.
Advil's been my best friend, and it's just, I wouldn't feel good laying in bed. Of course, there's times where you're in bed for a couple hours watching a stupid movie and that heals you, but it doesn't feel as good as when you're on the farm and you're getting something done that it's going to be better for the animals tomorrow if what you do today. So you just do it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sitting here wondering, I mean, you're telling me how you push through a ton of things. And certainly it's incredibly admirable, and I understand why you do it. I'm also wondering though, like, how do you take care of yourself? Like, how do you make it so that you are able to sustain yourself in the work?
Pizza. I mean, it literally is as little as that.
Yeah.
It's as little as having a pizza and just taking a breath or talking to a friend or I don't need anything big. People are like, why didn't you go on vacation? I'm like, if I went on vacation, I would just be thinking about here. And I sit in the pasture and I look at the beautiful Christ. It took me 7 years I hated this place
Mm,
for 7 years. Not the animals, not the
right.
systems, nothing. This place was so broken and it needed so much work. Like, so everything was broken.
Yeah.
And we've slowly fixed it and made this oasis and beautiful place. But finally, like a month ago, I sat down. I'm like, I love it here. This
Mm,
is beautiful. And so I I don't need something big to do that. I need, people will say winters are shorter, are shorter days. I have, you know, um it gets pitch black at 3:30, so there's not much you do after that. So it's like sometimes like we do transport, and so I was just in North Carolina, the past couple months, been to Ohio for 24 hours, and that's where those are feel good situations. And the one to Ohio, it was the animals weren't even coming here. I was taken from a defunct sanctuary to uh an open sanctuary that took the animals, so it was literally just doing transport, and that was so fulfilling. And every day is fulfilling. Every day feels like you're doing a good thing, but just that kind of stuff. So it's I don't need anything major. Like I said, just sitting there having a good meal.
yeah.
Or it's not this huge, like I said, it's not a vacation. The thought of going on vacation gives me such anxiety.
Hmm.
And so I um I don't need that. Like I don't. And it's funny because I talk to people, and I do this as a volunteer. I've worked since I was 13 years old. I live a very I cost effective life. I don't spend a lot of money. My pants are used. I buy like my pants used. I mean, I like them softer and beat up anyway, but a lot of my shirts come from here, so I get them wholesale. And like I live but I don't need a lot.
Hmm.
So I don't need to go on vacations. Like I said, you take the small wins. And so I don't need a fancy situation to make me happy. I need very basic stuff. And you find pure joy in the very little things.
Yeah.
And so and a little thing, maybe just someone made it through a very big illness. We have a couple of really cool situations happening, and like I don't want to mention it, but a big university is coming here to train. And that's so that walking on sunshine, man, like walking on sunshine. You know what I mean? Like someone saying you did a good job, and that's all I need.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can hear a lot of gratitude in that. That also is very helpful in maintaining yourself.
No doubt. Yeah, I'm very, for people where, you know, an animal's in the at Cornell and the bill is very expensive. And, a couple people like, oh, we're gonna help you out with that. We're gonna help you out with that. And it's like, thank you. You believe in what we do.
Yeah.
And that means my job as far as amplifying their voices, putting the stories together, getting you to feel and you actually are part of their story.
Yeah.
And so it's all this big full circle stuff. And so it's pretty wonderful.
Yeah. Now you mentioned the recent passing of Ren, which I'm obviously very sorry that that happened.
It's been terrible.
Um, how do you I mean, I hear you get a lot of outpouring of emotion and condolences and sadness from your followers, but how do you move through grief?
I don't think it ever goes away, and I don't think you move through it. I think you just learn to deal with it because at any point I can just burst into tears, and that's okay. I don't care who's around. I'm not ashamed of it. Um, and so, we it was weird. This one person, and this just stuck with me. And when I've told the story, people have taken it differently. And this person was on a tour, and I think it's after we lost Katniss, and she just looked around and she was like, "You have a lot of death in front of you." And she wasn't saying it to be hurtful in any way, shape, or form. And I didn't take it as that, but it was kind of prolific for me, and I lost my breath for a second, and I was like, "You're right." I'm like, and so, I don't, during this process of starting the sanctuary, I've lost my father, I've lost my uncle, I've lost several really close animals to me. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about several of them. I cry a lot. I'm an emotional person, and I think that makes me better at my job. And so I don't think there's a direct way of dealing with it except to kind of lean into the grief and
Mhm.
let it happen and let it pass and get the breath, take a breath during it and know that every every animal that passed I did my best for. And so you could justify that and know that they've all left this planet. We're billions of others that are just numbers that are just, and I don't believe they're just numbers, but they're considered just numbers. They suffered their whole life and they were a sandwich and then they were disregarded.
Mhm.
And so I know that for the few I'm able to save, that when they do go, that they left a mark and helped and were the face of the billions that weren't able to do that.
Yeah.
So you go into a big, and I'm not going to say tailspin, but it's a big thought process of, you know, it goes the same every time. You just go into tears and then you just let it go and you go on with your day and know that's going to happen again tomorrow. And I think if you don't do this, this is not the chosen path for you. I think people that do rescue are empathetic and have to have those emotions, or you may not connect the way the ones that are emotional connect. And I have yet to meet a caregiver that's not emotional.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that to be true as well. And I think to do good work, it's necessary. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Now, being incredibly empathetic, compassionate, sensitive, um, and being also a male in this industry, which does seem to be very heavily female. What is that like for you to be a male in this space?
Um, it's difficult. It's difficult because there's so much said. Um, and again, I hate to keep bringing negative into it, but there's where you'll get attention because of that.
Hmm.
You're going to get hate because of it too. Because one, people don't believe it's real. And so you have the haters, including other sanctuaries, which is very sad. we've had haters of from sanctuaries come at us because they don't believe it real, because I do cry and they think it's an act. And anybody that comes here knows it ain't an act. I mean, it's who I am. And so anybody that's known me for my whole life understands that this isn't an act, but there's you would think it'd be easier because there's fewer of us. And in some aspects, I think maybe it is because people might be, it's kind of different. You're right, its majority is, I'm going to say, very strong women. And so when you change it up by, and it's men, I can only think of like three or four places that I know of personally were either run by a male or run by a couple. And so why this was started by myself. Initially, there was, oh, great reactions. And again, I don't know if it's so much of people just don't believe that a male could be this emotional. I don't know. This is just
Right.
who I am, so I can't question it, you know? Uh, so I guess it's both good and bad because in the situation it's kind of unique, but it goes hand in hand with the meat eaters too. It's like men should eat meat, brr, like so. I'm the weak vegan who cries. You know what I mean? It is, like I said, it helps us where I don't exploit any angle. I just be myself.
Yeah.
So it's not like put the guy in front of the camera, let the guy cry, blah 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 blah, blah. Pull an eyelash out or to make him cry. I don't need that. I cry when the wind blows. You know what I mean? I've
Yeah.
been through so much in my life that I'm an open book as far as suffering from a lot of stuff through my lifetime, through mental illness, through depression, severe depression. Um, and I try to talk to that as much as possible. But I've also gotten hate about it too. Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'm just being me, man. I'm just being me. And I feel like if I can connect with someone that's gone through mental illness and depression and they can move on and push through and get to a better place, then I've helped that person. If my suffering can help someone get through what they're going through and know that you can get to the other side, then I don't mind telling my story and I'll deal with the haters. And unfortunately, the world is filled with people who hate, but it's filled with people who love. And
Yeah.
we won't be here without those people that absolutely love.
Yeah.
So we take the good and the bad and focus on the good. And take the bad with a grain of salt, but everything we do is going to be criticized. So no matter what, so if it's a female doing it, they're going to be criticized for one reason or another. Um, if it's, anything,
Mhm.
they're gonna find an angle to hate you. It just so happens there's a lot less males doing this, so it's a bigger angle for them.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten a lot lately. It's ebb and flow, and people don't even realize that world exists of people who hate on sanctuaries. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very true.
And
Well,
only because they feel threatened, their lifestyle feels threatened. Like we're gonna hold them down and force them to eat tofu.
yeah, I think there probably is a certain level of irrational fear or some version of threat that they feel about that. But yeah. Well, I mean, from my perspective, I think your sincerity and your heart is apparent. And so I appreciate you sharing that today, but also every day with the animals that you are protecting and taking care of. I really appreciate that.
No, I love what I do. I love my life, and I always tell people I wouldn't change it for anything.
Yeah. Yeah. If people really wanted to support the work that you're doing at Arthur's Acres, how can they support you best?
Um, Best has changed throughout the years. And so best obviously is a financial donation in any way, shape, or form. Um, we are not supported by big money at all. We are supported by dollars and cents, and every dollar counts, and that's not a cliche. And we really appreciate every dollar. But we also appreciate that the economy is kind of a mess right now, and our donations have been dropping steadily every day. We get messages of people dropping sponsorships, dropping Patreon. Patreon is really important to us. It's a monthly donation for as little as $1, for as much as you want to do. And those are really important because we can count on that money.
Mhm.
That helps with projects. It helps with emergencies. It helps with the future of the sanctuary. So the patrons and the monthly donations through sponsorships are the most important to us and the most helpful. But we also understand that the economy is terrible, and we know that people want to help, and sometimes they feel like they don't have the ability. But as little as just on social media, sharing, liking, and commenting on our posts is so important. And I tell people, because it's like, oh, well, what's that going to do? Well, it gets our message of compassion out there, but also may get our videos and posts in front of someone who can help. And so if you can't help, we completely understand it and we support it, and we get it. We do. We want to make sure that the people that fallen on hard times, but just because you're falling on hard times doesn't mean you're not part of the village. Because you can't
Mhm.
donate,
Yeah.
because you can't give us $1 a month, doesn't mean you're not included in this journey. And those people just want to, hey, how can I help, man? I just can't afford it. But like, cool, share our post, comment on it, like it. Do whatever you can do. Whatever you can do is helpful.
Yeah.
We don't alienate people. $5 and $10 a month is our average donation.
Yeah.
Really, you're just as important as everybody else. And you're just as important if you share a post. And if you're just as important if you like and comment, or, write a review on Google.
Mm.
Like, there's so many things you can do with that. Again, I'm not going to downplay donations as how we function every day.
Yeah.
We're really efficient with our money. I am super cheap and super efficient and able to do things with less money. And why donations are so important, so important. So is the other things where, social media is so important when, doing this for 7 years, being in rescue for 11 years, you saw the progression of media being more important in rescue. And now it really is so important. So
Yeah.
obviously, a big check would be the greatest thing in the world. $1 a month is awesome.
Yeah.
But if we have an emergency, and we never really say emergency because we believe emergency is way overused in rescue.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
always say if we say it's an emergency, there's a real emergency. But if we're having an animal emergency, share that post. If we're having a fundraiser, share that post. And that is good because that may get in front of someone who's never seen us before
Yeah.
and may decide to follow us and may decide to donate. So if we're having an event, if we have new merch release, you know, and someone buys a shirt that wasn't normally, but they liked it, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So there's so many little ways to support us, and we love all of it. It just, you know, I love like kids doing like book marathons in school, and we get, $11 in cash in the mail from, Johnny or Sally that did like a bookathon.
Mm. Mhm.
Get a beautiful note from the parents that this is what they want to do. They saw you, they fell in love with Mikey, they fell in love with Ann Claire. And it's like, that's incredible.
That is.
That's incredible. And it's like, so like I said, the best way obviously is financial, but there's so many beautiful ways to help us, and we appreciate every one of them.
Yeah. The awesome sentiment, a nice reminder for people that even these small actions can be very impactful. And like you said, you never know whose eyes these posts land on, and it could be you know, the thing that allows some big actions to be taken. So you never
I
know.
mean, and that's the thing. You never know. Like it gets in front of one person, the one person sees it, it strikes a chord with them. They're like, let me find out more.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so cool. You don't understand the power that you really have with just your finger and pressing share.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And social media is so, I mean, like you said, it's so impactful these days. It's the way that many sanctuaries, rescue shelters are surviving. That's how they get their money. So it's important to continue to share, continue to comment, and keep those posts visible. So, yeah. Well, Todd, thank you so much. I really appreciate your heart today and certainly making time today. I know
Of
that you
course.
are a very busy man, but hope to continue to keep this word out and continue talking about resiliency in this field because you guys are giving so much of yourselves. And I just want to appreciate that and help other people understand the real work behind the scenes and what goes on.
Wonderful.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Thank
thank
you
you
so
so much.
much.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you again to Todd Freeman of Arthur's Acres Animal Sanctuary. If you liked what you heard today, please like, subscribe, share with a friend, or comment. Until next time, may we all find our own tale of resilience. Thanks for joining us on Tales of Resilience. If today's story moved you, reminded you of your own path, or gave you something to think about, please consider sharing this episode with someone else who cares. You can follow us on Instagram at zodi.pause and animal.rescuehub to stay connected, or visit zodipause.com or animalrescuehub.org to learn more about both of these organizations. And you can also email us directly at info@animalrescuehub.org. And if you or someone you know has a story worth sharing, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, be kind to yourself and never underestimate the power of a tale and a little resilience.